welcome to the SwirlyCast, the only audio show that can be enjoyed by humans and yokai alike, and is the subject of being way too stinking hot out for my liking, and increasing the power of attacks in a puzzle game. Man, I envy people on the West Coast a lot more right now. I am your host, Koma, happy you decided to spend a few minutes out of your day to come hang out, and with formalities out of the way, what is on the mind today? We are speaking about the next game in the Puyo Puyo series, Puyo Puyo Sun, making its splash, no pun intended, onto the arcades in December of 1996 and receiving home versions throughout all of 1997. Literally, it's just so spread out. If you look on the Puyo Nexus wiki, it's just like, right, yeah. So, what made this game stand out from its predecessors? I mean, obviously it's still Puyo Puyo at its core. It's a puzzle game, you get the blobs and then you do the thing and then a boom and a boom and a boom. But we should probably go over the little mini story this time around, because it actually does play a part into the game lore itself. So, if you didn't already know the story about Puyo Puyo, essentially just, Dark Prince, or Satan bad, go stop him. And it's pretty much the plot of Puyo 1, and then builds a tower in Puyo 2, Scour, and he's a more direct thread in Puyo 3, but no, not by much. He's still a pretty silly villain at the end of the day, which is something that I like. Basically, in an effort to charm all those ladies, the prince decides that he should probably get a very, very, very nice tan, because apparently, according to a book, it says that all the ladies enjoy a guy with a really, really nice tan. I have no way to confirm this, but this was the 90s, so let's go with it and say that it's probably true. But, so in an effort to make the best tan possible, he uses some of his magic to enlarge the sun! You are reckoning the universe as we speak, just so you can get a really good-looking tan, but you know, I guess that's kind of retribution for what you had to go through for the first couple games, but you know... So anyway, Arl is obviously not very too pleased with this because it's just way too dang hot. And, you know, she sets off to the Dark Prince's castle one more time to square off and then, you know, to end it all. But for the first time in the series' history, you aren't playing as just Arl. There are two other campaigns with two other characters. May I introduce to you two characters that have been a part of the series ever since Puyo 1, and I know Sheza was in Medu Monogatari, but I'm not sure about Draco, but, you know, whatever. Draco's vacation essentially is a prologue to the story, where she wants to go up to the top of a mountain to sunbathe, but that's when the whole sun thing just becomes thing, and it gives her a really bad sunburn. So, yeah. And Shezo's story kind of takes place at around the same time, or after Arl gets there. I'm not really too sure on the specifics of that one, but it can be implied that it's taking place around the same time or a little ways afterwards. Maybe Arl's a little ahead of Shezo, I'm not too sure on that one. Basically, each of the three characters presents itself with three different difficulties. Drago's story is essentially just the three practice stages of the original Puyo Puyo game, teaching you the mechanics of the game, not having too many colors, and just being really relaxing and getting you more so used to the new mechanics. Arl's stories takes you through the entire campaign with every single character, aside from the three practice stages ones, and Shezo's story is a harder variation, which is considered the hard mode, and it starts later in the campaign with harder opponents in more, you know, faster drop speeds. And that's pretty much the differences between all three of them. They may seem cosmetic at first glance, but there actually are some more unique differences beyond just that. But to get into that, we will have to talk about the main mechanic of this game, and that is the Sun Rule set. The Sun Rule set is basically if you offset an opposing chain, or you clear out some garbage Puyo, randomly dropped on your board will be the Sun Puyo. Clear Puyo next to them, and your chain attack will be powered up. So a 2 chain could just be as strong as a 4 chain if you, match so many Puyos all together. It's actually kind of ridiculous. You probably would have seen that in the B-roll footage of the most recent update video, if you paid attention to that. But it's, but it's still a very unique mechanic, and one that I'm mixed on. On the one hand, it is pretty fun, and I do like the fact that it does make the game stand out, and it isn't just Puyo Su again, but with brighter colors and more detailed graphics and all that other stuff. It actually has its own reason to be played, and the Sun rule set is not the worst that the series is gonna get. Oh, the foreshadowing. But, it's definitely not one of the series' best, in my opinion. Granted, of course, it's still far from bad, and I would rather play this over one particular rule set, and much others than another game, but, you know, it's not ideal, but it gets the job done. But there's also just more stuff to do in general. I played this game thanks to the PC version, and it is the most current and up-to-date version. Released it in 1998, or in April, so it's probably the most up-to-date, and it has some really cool additions that I am a big fan of. One of them is the tournament mode, making its debut in this game. Basically, it's about as simple as you get. Play Puyo matches against the computer or with other players, and there you go. A new mode that we haven't talked about yet, because it was in a Game Gear side game called Not So Puyo, is essentially just the mission mode. You're given a list of objectives in order to complete, and then if you do them, you move on to the next one, and then do blah 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 blah. That's pretty much it. But another big difference that I want to get into is this is the first time that every single character is playable in the game themselves. It isn't just Arl saying all of her spells every million times for every single playable character anymore. No. If you wanted to wonder why every character has a unique spell in every game going forward, this Puyo Sun is the culprit, and I think it does a lot to increase this game's identity and to make each character seem a lot more than just like a carbon copy CPU with just more AI than the other one. It actually gives them a lot more personality. Each of them has their own animations, has their own spell lists, and each of them has their own unique sprites while in the cutscenes, and that kind of charm can make a Snivy cringe in its sleep. Pokemon Best Wishes jokes aside, it's a very homey touch, and it's no wonder that every single main game going forward, even the side games, or some of the side games I should say, have this homey touch, and it did get solidified with Puyo Puyo Fever, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with that. And yeah, that's pretty much all that she wrote. Puyo Puyo Sun, for all of its pros, it does come with a couple of cons. Like, the Sun rule set is probably not going to be for everyone, and it's something that I'm mixed on, but I still think that it's enjoyable enough that I can get through the game fine and not feel too overwhelmed by it, but it definitely isn't the most ideal rule set in the world out there. But there's also the thing that because this game was very, very old, it's almost impossible to play now. That is, of course, if you're not paying attention to Puyo Nexus and with the Puyo Sun English patch for the PC version. And this is how I recommend you play the game. Not only to get all the content, but you also get some nice extra goodies with the English translation, and it's pretty accurate, all things considered. Granted, of course, I'm not fluent in Japanese, but I imagine that a lot of work went into this, and because, you know, it's been over 12 years since that thing has been released. God, I feel so old saying that. Ugh. But yeah, Puyo Sun, for all of its pros, it does have cons, but you know, it's still a good game at the end of the day. Is it better than 1? Definitely. Is it better than 2? Well, just in the fact alone is that you don't have to have point requisites in order to progress through the main story. Honestly speaking, I actually kind of prefer Sun, even though it does have some problems and some little nitpicks that I could pick. But, of course, we are limited by our time, so, you know, all that fun stuff. It's still a good game, and I still think that Sue is very much worth playing, but please, play Sun. It's definitely one of the series' greats, and it's definitely a classic if I've ever seen one. But even though Puyo Sun has its problems, in terms of its charm, it's unbeaten. If you like Puyo Puyo and you haven't tried this game out yet, I'd highly recommend it. I imagine that you'll probably get a lot out of it, and especially for the cutscenes. They can be weird, they can be wacky, but they actually can be very entertaining at times. It's, the kind of stuff they got away with. But I believe that's all the time that we have for now, because I'm just rambling on at this point. So with that, this has been Koma, and my friends, fellow viewers, and camaraderies alike. Thank you for tuning into this episode of SwirlyCast. Until next time, bye-bye! And this is why we never trust sunbathers, everyone. Because they're the ones who will probably destroy the environment just so they can make themselves look good.